Okay, it looks like we're live here. I am so glad to be joining everybody this afternoon. Well, it's the afternoon in Texas. Today, I want to try and start a conversation about how we relate to our subscribers on Substack. Oh, hey, Aviana, it's great to see you. She's one of my readers of the publishing spectrum. Um, because I think that we have this false understanding of what it means to understand our subscribers, and we see it as a creative threat to think about them too much. And today I want to talk about what happens when we try to transform how we relate to readers, and just some ways that I have been guiding folks this month to just challenge this assumption of, like, what does it mean to understand your audience, to learn about them, and also retain your creative sovereignty. I don't know if y'all have been hearing that in a lot of my channels. I'm hearing from folks around how creative sovereignty is so important. And at the exact same time, we have to understand our audience. Like, there's a new media landscape in front of us, right? And the magic is when you retain your creative sovereignty and when you understand your subscribers. So today I'm going to share how I help um, folks on Substack think intentionally and from a relational lens about who's actually reading their publications. But before I get started, and as I'm letting folks just kind of like jump in, I would just love to know, like, when you think about your readers, what's one word that you would use to describe your relationship with them right now? It could be quiet, it could be growing, it could be uncertain, it could be non-existent. Tell me in the comments, when you think about your readers, how would you describe that relationship? I'm gonna just give folks a few more minutes to jump in before we talk a little more about why nurturing matters. So awesome. Sue speaks. She says she thinks as a mentor. And Cameron Harris says it's uncertain. It's uncertain. Yeah. It's totally awesome. Yeah. Ibiana says uncertain. Yeah. While I'm watching as folks are joining, give this some thought. Like, when you think about your readers, what's one word you would use to describe your relationship with them right now? Um, I think when I first started on Substack, I had curiosity, but also a blank slate as well. For the readers that have been with me for a long time, you'll know that I started on Substack with a blank slate with 12 readers, and grew into a best-selling publication without any social media following. So I started with a blank slate as well. And so I have built, from my marketing background, a way to relate to readers that doesn't hinder my creative sort of sovereignty. And so today, that's what I want to talk about. Um, is like why knowing your subscribers isn't a threat, or doesn't need to be a threat to that creative sovereignty. So I'm going to give folks just a few more minutes to join in. Um, for folks who are coming in, I've been just asking folks to share in the comments, like, what's one word you would use to describe your relationship with your readers right now? Any word is fine. Some folks have shared uncertain, non-existent. Um, it's okay if they're quiet. There's a lot of summer slump going on around Substack right now. So if you're like crickets, that's what my relationship feels like. Um, totally fair as well. Mm, Anybody else? Okay, we've been live for about 5 minutes, so I'm gonna jump right in. So part of the part of our exercise today. Oh, Vicky says remote. Yeah, did they feel remote, like far away? That's how your readers feel. Yeah. Um, Part of what I wanted to talk about today is that I think one of the barriers to understanding our subscribers is that we're looking at the wrong information. And the way that we talk about subscribers is very cold and unfeeling, and we think of them in terms of, like, an entity from which to extract something. And in all my years of being on Substack, meeting wonderful writers, working with so many wonderful publishers, if you are mission minded, if you are just dedicated to your craft, you likely are not interested in an extractive relationship with your audience. You're looking for something that is genuine, that is mutually beneficial, and hopefully regenerative. Hopefully you are giving them something into the world, and they're giving something back by what they give, whether that is through time, attention, comments, likes, and hopefully money if growing revenue is part of your plan. So I want to talk to y'all about the reality that within your publication, there are two ways to think about it. That they are just this blob of people that I send my essays out to, and then I just wait to hear what they say. Just an amalgamous group of people, and I just see what happens. And there's another way to think about it, and it's to think about their relationship of building trust with you. And one of the best ways that I have found to think strategically and relationally about my readers is to segment them into 4 core segments. This is work that I do in data audits all the time. I bring sort of my gift of organization and pattern tracking and my love of data to turn into relationship building. I start by challenging the assumption that your open rate tells you anything about your audience. For me, open rate is a tech check. If my open rate is dropping, or a headline check. If my headlines have been kind of getting droopy, I'm going to see that in the open rate over a 3-month period. But what I'm looking for is I'm looking for behavioral indications about readers in different segments of my publication. So I'm going to assume that everyone who's on here um, is somehow interested in a Substack audience and has some level of Substack audience. And so today I'm going to tell you that what I do when I'm looking at audience development and trying to understand who are these subscribers as real people who I'm wanting to engage with in an authentic and specific way. And the word specific is really important here because when you have a publication in a space like Substack that it is getting crowded. There are a lot of voices showing up. The specificity with which you reach out to your readers matters. It matters a whole lot. And so I'm hopeful that these 4 reader segments will help you think authentically and from a relational perspective, which is really the only, even with a long marketing background, I am motivated by relational connection more than any kind of off-putting sort of extraction from them. So the first segment that I would assume if you're publishing on Substack that you have is your free reader segment. So these are folks who they haven't paid yet, likely. If you have outside ecosystems where they potentially bought, you would probably know that in a different data set. But we're gonna look at just the publishing ecosystem inside Substack. When someone comes into your list, they're a free reader and they're paying attention. And that's where we start. It's like, okay, these readers are paying attention and trust is just being started. And I think you're going to hear me refer back to this a lot because ultimately what we're trying to understand is the trust journey that the readers inside your publication are going on. If growing and nurturing them to eventually upgrade is part of your plan, or if part of your plan is to activate them around a book launch. It's really important to know how your readers are interacting and growing with you. So you've got free readers, right? Um, they're paying attention, and we want to nurture them really specifically around just the newsletter experience that you offer. These people are not most likely. I think it's important to keep in mind that these are folks who are inside an ecosystem where they have lots of options to give their email address away. So if they have given you access to either their app or their inbox, just realize that they are at the beginning of a journey with your newsletter experience. Then we shift into looking at, okay, paid monthly readers. And in my data audits, I look at paid monthly habits versus yearly subscriber habits, because we can learn a lot about someone's motivation, their attachment and support to your mission by knowing where they've chosen to put their dollars. It really does matter. And in this space, I wish there was something better than measuring the dollars spent. But the reality is that people's relationship with their money will tell you a lot about what they think about the value inside your publication. So we look at people who have paid monthly as there's a couple ways to think about it, and really depends on your data. These are folks who have said, yes, I'm ready to pay, I'm ready to support, I'm ready to show my support of your work through my dollars. Um, Typically, what I've found is that if folks jump on it monthly, they stay at monthly until they're given a reason to go yearly. And there's a couple strategic reasons why going yearly helps. One of them is um, they're only prompted once a year to decide if they want to keep supporting your work, and you have a whole 12 months to like make the case of my newsletter experience is worth paying for and staying paid for. So we think about paid monthly as folks that have said yes, but they're potentially just still feeling things out. If you've been publishing for a long time, your understanding of paid monthly readers might shift a little bit, because if you had a lower price point and now have raised your rates, some folks stay at monthly because it's a more affordable and economical option. But we want to think about our readers through the data that tells us real behavioral change and real behavioral choices. And so we think about paid monthly versus paid yearly as um, like points of resonance. And then inside my data audits, I really like to understand how long it takes someone to upgrade from free to paid monthly and from free to paid yearly, because that tells us something else about the ways that your readers resonate and respond. It tells us something about what's moving through the ecosystem. So we're not just thinking about a blob of people; we're thinking about specific readers on their own journeys. And then, of course, like the fourth uh, group is the founding members. And I think right now Substack is in a space where they're letting you change the name of what you want to call it, so you can call them, you know, superstars if you wanted to. But these are basically the folks that are they're at the top tier of your support level. And depending on what you decide to do, you can make it optional for them to set their own price. There's a little bit of customization there. Um, Historically, in the data audits that I have found, founding founding members are the people inside your group, inside your reader segments, that often are waiting for another open door to support you. And I know that sounds weird, because you would think, well, they just supported me for $150. I can't ask for more. In everything that I have seen, and I will let you know if this pattern ever changes. Founding members are often waiting to be invited into more. Sometimes that is spending more money. Sometimes that is spending more time with you. And so thinking about how you nurture founding members versus paid monthly versus paid yearly really does change the game in how you nurture relationships with your audience. So I'm going to pause there and just ask folks who are on there. I've seen a handful of familiar names. I saw Ben and Jen join in. It's so nice to see y'all. Um, I want to pause for a second and just hear from y'all. Like, which reader types do you feel like connected to? Is there if you feel a different connection, or if you've ever had some like the question about um, who they are versus other readerships, like just drop it in the chat and let me know. Is it the free readers? Is it the paid monthly? Is it the paid yearly? Or is it your founding subscribers? I'm going to pause for a second and then get a drink, because I've been talking a lot. Um, okay, so M. Cameron Harris says he currently only has free readers. Okay, totally, totally good. So there's other ways to segment free readers. I don't think I can dive into that today. But off the top of my head, if I were you, I would start trying to understand their activity level inside your publication, and seeing if you can see any segments of highly active versus less active. So Sue Speak says she's all free right now. Yeah, that's okay. You haven't been very active, Karen. That's no problem. So Jan Elizabeth said sometimes free readers engage most with posts, but they don't upgrade. Yeah. Yeah. So that happens a lot. And um, that's kind of the open door, where I think reflective sort of reader structures can be helpful. I have a reader connection blueprint that I offer to my paid readers, where you can start learning about your readers that way. Jen Zuck says, I connect most with my frequent commenters. They're most paid readers. I only have 15 and they're in real life friends. Hey, that's great. That's a great start. Um, I definitely I don't ever want anybody I've seen this a lot where folks like kind of poo-poo that like, oh, these are folks that I know in real life. But like the amount of support that someone needs to sustain a publishing journey should not be underestimated. So like the folks who are in real life and showing up for you, they are helping you get ready to meet all of your future readers by being that support system for you. So, okay, so we've got these four segments. What's the point, right? Like, what's the point of doing this other than what I've already said is that like thinking of them like a blob just doesn't help us connect. At least for me, it doesn't motivate me relationally to get to know them. I want specificity in my relationships. So I want to share a real world example um, from a client that I recently worked with. Sorry, hold on. Mindy just sent through a really great message, and so I'm going to pause. She said, I have all those levels. Okay, I'm touched by those family members who I call true believers. I do know them, and I'm so grateful for them. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Um, so let's say we've got the four segments. We understand how people are moving through publication. When does this information matter? Today I was talking with a client on Voxer. So I offer like week-long Voxer support called publishing support weeks. And we talked about how if you are most comfortable inside um, the creative, juicy, energetic space, that moving into the analytical publishing production side can feel like walking through the desert. Like it's such a parching sort of experience. And I think that's why most deeply creative and intuitive and mission-minded creators leave the data alone because the walk for your brain to get over to okay, I'm going to think strategically. I'm going to think big picture. I'm going to think about how to organize these folks. It's just so long, and the and the trek back to that creative space is also very long. So I just want to acknowledge that like this information is helpful in specific seasons and in specific decision making pivots. I think the majority of folks who have smaller publications don't likely need to stress a whole lot about all four of these segments, but it can be helpful to start learning about them now so that when you do grow, you know who's in there. So here's a real world example of what how I recently supported someone who was approaching a major publication anniversary. They're coming up on a 1 year launch, and they know it's more than a celebration. They know that they have quite a few comps that are coming up that are going to expire. They know that their business structure needs these comps to hopefully upgrade. But they're also extremely mission minded. And so they're not interested in just extracting something from a large group of people just to make money for the business. Like they're very mission minded and very balanced. And so they have a small team. And what we ultimately decided to do was we were going to focus on nurturing two key groups out of these four. So we're going to focus on how to reach out to and connect with free readers who hadn't upgraded yet, and then we were going to reach out to the founding level comps who were given paid access at the launch because those are two really large segments. Um, I want to say easily close to probably 80,000 readers between the free and the paid. Um, And the reason we focused there is because there were very specific nucleuses of energy inside their trust building. Because we can look in the data, I was able to run a couple quick audits and just show that the majority of comps are active like 15 out of 30 days a month. Like they're really, really active, which means that they're engaged with the mission. They're showing up. They're coming to find the posts and the audio regularly. And so the team decided to make two separate launch or anniversary messaging systems toward them. So for free readers, they designed out the messaging on this, and I supplied the data to basically help them figure out which segments mattered most. So they're going to create a special moment of reflection for free readers that only goes to free readers. It's not going to paid monthly. It's not going to paid yearly folks. It's just free readers because ultimately, folks, once they get behind the paywall, they're having a completely different experience of your publication. And it's important to not mess up that messaging when you get into larger into a larger publication. And then for founding comps, we have a different sort of messaging where it's going to be layered to remind them that their comp is going to um, uh, that their comp is going to expire soon, and here's what they've been supporting with their time, attention, how much they matter to the mission, whether or not they can offer um, money, but they get a public thank you and an open door to continue being part of what's next. Um, so in this situation, yes, we're nurturing at volume here, but we also wanted to acknowledge the diversity inside the publication and the reader's experience, so that when they're being invited in from the place with which they're already connected. If that makes sense. Um, okay, so I'm gonna pause today. Pause right now. So Jen Zug asked, so the active metric refers to my publication, not on Substack in general. Are you talking about the activity level, like the star rating? Let's wait for Jen to get back to me. Oh, active 30 days. Yes. So active 30 days means like anytime they have logged in and interacted with your publication. So we're looking at active days um, inside your publication. So it's just like a cumulative sort of high level picture. So if they've come to your profile, I don't know if it's profile, but I do think it's publication. Yeah. Um, and then from there, we can zero down into like seeing if active days to post views follows any pattern, um, like how active that is. But this is all kind of CSV sleuthing that you have to do. In the high level one, it's helpful just at a high level to know how often are they interacting with your Substack without you having to ping them. So, okay, Jen says thumbs up. So I'm kind of like wrapping down my whole spiel about like what does it mean to think about your Substack subscribers intentionally? What does it mean? Why should we think about them as more than just a blob, a blob of readers, but actually think more intentionally about their reader journey, where they're going to. Um, and the reason that I wanted to talk about this today is because whenever I am inside a slump, so I've been in publishing environments for ooh, a long time. I became directly in front of digital audiences back in 2012. Um, there are naturally going to be moments where things get sloggy, things slow down, and it's really easy to want to like cling to growth hacky kind of things and to think like, oh, I just have to like just interject myself or I have to try something that I'm uncomfortable with that I wouldn't normally do in regular seasons. Um, for me, whenever I get stuck or whenever a client gets stuck, I turn to what do we know about our readers? How can we understand our readers better during this quiet period? Um, and how can we recognize that like there is going to be different journeys that each person is on, and perhaps this is just a journey that they're in sync on right now. Because what I think happens is that when your attention turns toward what you can nurture, so like you can nurture free readers, even when um, essays and how people sign up is changing. Um, I think shifting your attention to what the numbers say versus what the people are trying to tell you through the numbers is an incredibly powerful thing so that your creative juices don't get stuck as well. And I think that's something that I'm really mindful of in all of my the conversations I'm having offline and having on Voxer with my clients is that um, summer slumps create like energetic slog. And what I find is always a really powerful way to break free of that is to think about my readers and to connect with that felt sense of like my work is here to do something and to meet them and to change something in their lives. And when I do that, inevitably every single time we think of some way to either energize the publication, we think of some way to energize our own creative sort of feeling of stuckness, and ultimately, that is the process that I have seen work best for what it takes to build momentum and to stay in the publishing game during during quieter times like right now, like what we're experiencing during the summer. Um, so I guess before I wrap up here, I'm just curious, like when you think about your publication, what's something that you wish you understood better about your audience? Like what have you wondered about? Drop it in the chat. I might be able to like give you a tip on the spot for the next couple of minutes and just help everybody else also think more creatively about what happens when we stop thinking about our subscribers as this blob of people on a list and as groups of people and really almost like constellations. I like to think of them as constellations because they're constantly kind of moving and they're evolving and having their own interaction with the work that you make. Um, yeah, what's one thing you wish you understood better about your audience? I'll see if I can help. Because sometimes it's actually not an audience question. It feels like an audience question, but it's actually a creative question. So Sue Speak says, why are they not more responsive even to hitting likes? Um, well, Sue, it really depends on where they're reading. If they don't have an easy way to get from their inbox to the app, hitting the like button is going to be a bigger task than you might realize. So, I would want to know where your readership is typically opening and the ratio of people who are opening emails and their post views. Because if there's not an easy way for them to jump from their inbox into the Substack ecosystem, that like is actually harder than you would think to push. Um, okay, hold on. Let me see here. So Jen Zug says she's wondering why it feels like my year one subscribers have stopped engaging. Year one, and remind me again, I think we started around the same time. You've been on here for about 3 years. I'll wait for Jen to reply while I read somebody else's. Sue. Okay. So Jen says, yeah, can I jump up to Sue? She says, just like as an example, I want them to talk. Yeah. So I think those are really good questions, Sue. And without being able to see the back end of your data or knowing a whole lot, I don't really know anything about your publication. It's hard to say why folks don't chime in. The but I'll tell you just from my experience with like mission-minded and deeply creative and deeply emotionally attuned writers, oftentimes they write pieces that just send people into quiet, reflective places and they forget to engage. And so how you publish naturally needs to shift in order to make space for them to actually engage because if you fall into any of those categories, and again, I don't know you, but um, how your audience behaves it will be a natural reflection of how you write, how deeply you go, and then what kind of invitations you're inviting them into. So um yeah, that'd be interesting to brainstorm about if you ever wanted to chat on Boxer. Okay, Jen's been publishing since 2022. So you say that you feel like they've dropped off. Are they still opening? They're just not interacting? Wait and see. Jen's gonna tell me. Um, Jan Elizabeth says, "What are the things that help someone make a leap from one subscription level to another?" Oh, that's what she's wondering about. Oh, that's a really good question. So the things that help people jump from one subscription level to another. Um, Being invited. I know that sounds really silly, or really, really simple, but oftentimes, especially now that we do have a level of saturation around newsletters, and a news Substack is kind of like the cool kid on the block now. I think one of the things that I find across all levels of publications is that um, readers need to be reminded of how they can support you. And oftentimes that is being as direct as, here's how you can join me to do X, and it costs Y. Um, and those are more like promotional, I would say, depending on your size, like you'd send that out maybe quarterly, but just a reminder that, like, I'm still here. Here's what you can join, so that they stay inside the newsletter experience. That's the sort of the best I can come up with off the top of my head and without knowing specifics about what you're writing. Um, the reality is that most of the time, in my experience, it's just that they don't know what's waiting for them on the other side of the wall. And they have to be reminded, and that takes some planning and strategy in how you show up in people's inboxes. So, and Cameron Harris is asking, they're sharing that the range, they're curious about the reader's openness to a variety of perspectives and ideas. How adaptive do they want to be in this time of destabilization? Yeah, so that's a really good question. I would say, um, if you've been publishing inside a theme really consistently and you've seen growth really consistently around that theme, um, there's no reason why you, as the voice of your publication, can't explore other things. The challenge is that a lot of times the examples we have to look through in mainstream media of folks who just write about whatever whenever, they've already captured their audience trust. And so I think the reality is that there is a season of, like, trust building in who you are as a voice, and then also who you are around certain topics, because people will naturally self-select out of your publication, and that's good, when you stay true and consistent in how your voice shows up. And so I would say that ultimately the only thing you can do is test it. That this is a great experiment. If you're feeling some sort of, like, creative angst around something that you really need to write about, I think you should do that. You should follow that intuition, because usually there's some sort of creative gold hiding in there. And only you can know through experimentation how adaptive they're willing to be. And the reality is that unless you promised them, let's say, like, weekly insights into archaeology, and then one day you just flooded off far right to, now I'm into interior design, readers can usually hang. Readers can usually flow with you, especially if they build trust in, like, who you are and how you approach a topic. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, so jumping back to Jen Zug. So she says that her year one subscribers are no longer interacting, and she checked her stats and they are still opening slash viewing. So this makes me curious, and I don't have data on this, but it, um, I'm sure it exists somewhere, but my instinct is to want to know sort of the life cycle of how long people stay on certain social media sites. And if, I bet there's data somewhere for this, but, like, just Substack app fatigue. I wouldn't be surprised if you're in some sort of, like, like, zone that someone has discovered, where um readers who have been on a certain platform opt out for a season and just stay connected to the people that they want to read, but they aren't jumping into the app experience. Because that's usually what I find with even really large publications that are bringing, like, a following. If they don't need the app, they're not going to download it. If they can find what they need somewhere else, they're not going to download Substack just for the sake of being friendly to Substack. And so I think that human behavior could easily be planted into whether or not folks who read you in year one really need the app experience, or if they're just staying in touch with you. Um, So yeah, I hope that was helpful, Jen. Um, but it would be interesting to know. And I think you and I had a conversation once about cleaning email lists and how I am um, number one, I'm happy to let Substack do their own data informed cleaning of my list and and to let people be passively interacting with my list for as long as they want to be passively interacting with it, because if there is one thing online readers know how to do, it is get off a list they don't want to be on. They will find a way to make sure that they're off. And so if they want to just be headline readers, let them be headline readers while you are doing your own sort of um, you're following your own publishing journey. Oh, Jen says that makes sense. Thank you. Um, so yeah, so I started this and thanks, there's still folks who are kind of coming in. We've talked through kind of the value in thinking about your audience less as a blob and more as like readers who have a relationship with your work, and that those relationships need different kind of nurturing, and the more that you understand your readers, the more specific you can be in how you invite them in. Um, and I think this is a different way of thinking about things. I want to change how we relate to our subscribers because I have found it to be such a rich source of, number one, creative energy. Um, I found it to be such a rich source of um, narrowing the scope. So, like, I've been thinking for a couple of clients about what are, believe it or not, what are their holiday promotions going to look like? We're not thinking, how am I going to just spam everybody with the same offer? We're thinking about where people are in their journey and how we might invite them into the next step. So, in that case, it would be we're thinking about free readers into paid monthly versus paid yearly. We're thinking about how we sort of organize gifts or like gift giveaways. And we're thinking about what does it mean for our founding members to feel more connected in the new year. And so with that thought, with the segmenting and understanding of the people who are in your publication, you can actually pull richer ideas. You can pull more resonant ideas. You can make, for lack of a better term, your pitches more effective because you're trying to meet them in the ground of relationship and understanding. So, um, yeah. If no one else has any questions or wants to share, like what's one thing you wish you could understand better about your audience, I'm uh I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here and just say that this is kind of I'm giving you all kind of an inside look into how I work offline with small media teams and other publications. Um, just as a creative sounding board with an eye for uncovering what's hard to find inside your publication or what's hard to understand about your publication or your publishing journey. So, if anybody who's watching today or who is watching the replay, if you're ever interested in just connecting for a week, I offer a week like Monday through Friday or Wednesday to Wednesday of publishing support through Voxer. And I don't, if y'all aren't familiar with Voxer, it's basically like a walkie talkie. And we send one or two messages a day for 5 days and we just kind of work through where you feel stuck. Um, uh, and that's just one way that I support authors and I support also the strategists on teams to think through how to get unstuck, how to understand your audience better, how to use data to do that, and how to protect the creative life force that is inevitably inside publications. So I'm gonna link to that really quickly, and then I see I've got like one more question, and I'll scroll up. It's a little difficult on the phone. So M. Cameron Harris says, is segmenting possible as a planned strategy or only through discovery through metrics? Um, so if I'm understanding your question correctly, you can proactively nurture the segments that Substack gives you inside your subscriber tab. So you can go to subscriber and you can filter and you can choose to send specific emails to just certain um through certain things. I think that's what you're asking. not, feel free to add more context there. But yeah, let me just double check. Today we talked about kind of the four main segments that I pay attention to because they typically have the richest source of information inside them. Um, but there are, yeah, you have paid, free, founding, group parent, comp, gift, and free trial. And gifts and free trials are a whole different sort of like bucket of people who resonate with your mission, who are willing to put their money plus a little extra in the mix to give somebody access to your content. And so if you happen to have a larger publication that had lots of gifts being given away, that is something we would look at with a very clear lens, because those are people who are signaling to you something different about your publication is resonating enough to want to share it with friends. So, okay, and Kimmer Harris says that's what they think. Okay, well, um, if nobody else has any questions, I'm going to just wrap this up. I'm excited to hear from folks who are watching the replay just what you think could happen if you started to consider the subscribers inside your publication as going on a journey and meeting them at really specific junctures in your own publishing path. And then what are the steps you could take to get to know them, and think about them as readers going on a journey, and more than folks who just signed up and and who might throw me a couple of bucks. So anyways, I really appreciate everybody who joined today. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And if you aren't subscribed to the Publishing Spectrum, feel free. I'd love to have you as a reader. I give away a lot of stuff for free. I talk a lot about strategy and data. I talk a lot about just the creative process of what it means to go between the practical and the creative side of publishing. And so that's what we do at the Publishing Spectrum. And I'll be sending out the replay of this soon. So hopefully I'll see some of y'all in the replay comments. So thanks so much, everybody. Bye.